Checking my watch here for January 26, 2024. Common Sense Ohio coming in your way today, Friday, January 26, 2024. For those who don't know yet, and those regular listeners, you already do, please just bear with me as I issue the standard public service announcements. That is, you can find all our back shows at commonsenseohioshow.com. Did I just say that? Show.com. Mm-hmm. And we are sponsored, of course, by Harper Plus Accounting. My accountant could be yours, not just he can do the processing, he can do the transactional, he can get your tax return filed and you'll know it'll be darn right, but he can make sure all the information that you put in your tax return is accurate. Now, that's the trick, isn't it? So garbage in, garbage out. And if you think H&R Block on the corner with the guy flipping the signs around is going to do what Harper Plus does, sorely mistaken. Now, you may not need all that, and that's okay. He can help you. But I happen to need the extra, and he supplies it expertly. So Harper Plus Accounting, thank you for your ongoing sponsorships. And as those watching on TV see that we have a Harper Plus coffee mug. Mm-hmm. Look at that.
Sweet.
Next time we get Glenn down here, we'll have him bring a box of these.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
set it all around the table.
He is the sponsor. We should get something out of it. Anyway, so we are rock and roll, bringing you common sense right from the middle here. As those who follow the show now know, I do a quick little World War II segment every week, and that's because back when I was back in the 90s when I was in law school, I'd read the what used to be a newspaper, the Columbus Dispatch, and that was maybe a marginal. Never mind, it was a great newspaper back in the 90s, and they always had a 50 years ago today in history, and it was always a little blurb on World War II, so that I remember that even. That long ago. So that's what we're doing here. And today, Norm and I are going to talk a little bit about Stalingrad, but I think it's important to note that the Battle of the Bulge, which we've talked about since before Christmas, ended today officially. So the Bulge, for those who don't know, was literally named after a bulge that was pushed into the Allied lines. It looked like a big tongue, and Hitler was trying to get all the way to Paris, but sort of like Norm, not unlike our Market Garden. It was just a bridge too far.
Yeah, he was trying to get to Antwerp, but I get you.
Well,
not Paris, but
he thought he could get all the way to Paris.
Yeah, he was trying to get to that port to stop at the Allies from bringing in stuff, because we had still not really gotten any main ports until then in Antwerp. Even though we landed in Normandy, it's we didn't have Calais. We didn't have Boulogne. Those ports were still in German hands.
Yeah.
So Antwerp was where the main supplies were landing in huge amounts, and so the best troops that the Americans and Brits had were located in the northeast part of France and Belgium, and even somewhat into Germany, into Aachen, Germany. And so the idea was to replay the World War I trick of going through the Ardennes and then cutting behind all of the main troops of the United States and England, go behind them, sweep behind them, and go into Antwerp and go through this rest and relaxation area of the Ardennes, where they put inexperienced troops and troops recovering from heavy battle. So it was very thinly defended, and people were like, "Oh, nobody's going to come through here."
Right.
It's too
like they said in World War I.
Just like they said in World War I, and of course, von Rundstedt and all those German generals were like,
"We did this before."
Man, you think they're so they just bypassed it, the strong points and went behind the Allied lines, and they got like halfway to Antwerp before they ran out of gas.
Yeah, they ran out of gas. Their plan required them to capture Allied fuel
dumps
and fuel dumps and use our resources. And
they got some, but not
enough. Patton, of course, famously came up from the South, cut them off, and the rest is, as they say, history.
And they ran into some really hard points like Bastogne, and they couldn't get through there. You're right. So
they got bogged down. That was precious time too, because that's where they still had cloud cover. To some extent, you would have to say they had fortune on their side initially.
Yeah.
But that quickly dissipated.
And inexplicably, they didn't bypass Bastogne.
They could have.
And they could have. There was actually a circle freeway
you wonder
around Bastogne. Like they could have gone around it. But, we'll talk about Stalingrad.
Same kind of thing, right?
Same kind
of blunder.
Yeah. Just like, no, you will stay there and obliterate the enemy and go right up, hey, diddle, diddle,
just
right up the
ego. Right. How dare you say nuts to my surrender demand, right?
So we'll spend a couple of months here fiddle farting with the Allies instead of proceeding,
right.
With their plan. So
right.
Good for us.
Yeah, well,
I'm glad they did it.
And we were able to bag all the best, whatever's left, it was sort of decimated. So anyway, they ran out of energy, or they ran out of resources, they ran out of everything, and ran out of men, and eventually that was over. But you were going to talk a little bit about Stalingrad.
Yeah,
because,
just a little bit.
At the same time, or not at the same time, but this time of year, Stalingrad was going on.
Oh yeah, right. It was just about to end, and so Friedrich von Paulus, the commander of the Sixth Army, whom Hitler had split off. He had two armies that were going to go south and capture the oil fields in Azerbaijan, I think it was. But anyway, they were heading south, and they were going to capture these oil fields, which the German army, we just talked about fuel, right, for the Battle of the Bulge. So they needed fuel. And Germany doesn't have a lot of oil, so they had to get it elsewhere, just like Japan had to get oil elsewhere. So Hitler decided, look at this on the map. There's a city named after Joseph Stalin, my arch enemy. Mm-hmm. Well, why don't I divide my two armies, send one down the central part of Russia, and send the other one, half as many people down to get the oil fields, and he ended up getting neither one.
Yeah,
he didn't get
all
the oil
field. All ego, because the Stalingrad, while it was trifling named after Stalin, I suppose, it was not a real. The better military target would have been the oil fields.
Yeah. So in the Soviet Revolution, Stalin himself had commanded troops in Stalingrad, then called Volgograd, and after Khrushchev de-Stalinized the Soviet Union, it went back to being called Volgograd. It is still called Volgograd, and I visited there on a charity rally, a car rally. But at any rate, Stalin had defended against the white Russian army, the army loyal to the monarchy in the Romanov family, and he had defended Stalingrad for a couple of years. And so he was such a monster. The people of Volgograd were like, hey, let's figure out a way to please this guy, because he's killing people willy-nilly, with his NKVD under Lavrentiy Beria. You can read Solzhenitsyn about the Gulag and how they would literally just pull people out of their homes and say you're guilty of something, and then away they would disappear or be shot. And he was terrorizing his own population. And so they decided to name the city after him. Like, hey, we're good guys. We're on your side. Right? So,
well, Stalingrad, incredible story. Longer than what we have to discuss it, really. But
so just in a nutshell, I brought in this little artifact when I went to Stalingrad. There's a museum there called the Panorama Museum. This is the remains of a Soviet mortar, an 82 millimeter mortar, which is medium size. The weapon part of this would be up here, the explosive part, and this is just the tail fin remains of it. Like this is this is after it blows up. This is the only thing that might be left, and this is dated 1942, and of course von Paulus surrendered 5 days from now in January, the 30th and 31st. On the 30th, he became a field marshal, and Hitler's theory was he'll commit suicide if I make him a field marshal, because no German field marshal in German history, going back to Bismarck, none of them had ever surrendered, right? And so he wanted the 91,000 German troops left in Stalingrad to fight to the bitter end, not surrender. And he promoted Paulus the day before Paulus surrendered. And, Paulus said, I'm not committing suicide. I'm a Christian. I don't believe that.
Yeah, that was
Can't commit
to the death
because I'll never get to heaven. Whatever.
And the Germans, he decided Hitler decides to invade and push that campaign. I think late in the summer. I forget when it started, but late in the summer. And the soldiers were ill-equipped. Their boots weren't sufficient, and I think they had like metal in them that were so they would sound cool when he would march. And it was all about that sort of pomp and circumstance with Hitler, the ego stuff, and that metal I think conducted the cold right in there. I mean, it was brutal cold.
Right. So what the Soviet Union after this set piece battle in Stalingrad that went on for the German Luftwaffe bombed that city of 500,000 people. After this was over, only 1,500 people were left in the city.
Yeah.
They had all left or been killed. And the Luftwaffe had completely laid waste to the city under the same theory, like we talked about Monte Cassino, that if you bomb them, into rubble, that, you'll just roll in and they'll give up. Well, the rubble created perfect defensive locations for close quarters battle by the Soviets against the Germans. So he destroyed the city, but he also created like this rat war, they called it, between the Soviet troops and the civilian population against the Germans. The Germans lost 500,000 men. The Soviets lost almost 1 million men. Of the 91,000 Germans that surrendered, only 6,000 returned from the Gulag from the prisoner.
Isn't that insane?
Wow.
I mean, it's like there was no surrender to Stalin.
No, he just used them up.
Death,
I'm
right.
sure they built roads or railroads or what, they were prison labor, and only 6,000 returned after the war. And Paulus himself, during the war, became a propaganda tool by the Soviets. He would get on the radio, say bad stuff about Hitler, right?
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they flipped him. He ended up living in the Soviet Union after the war.
Huh. Interesting.
Voluntarily.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, great stories there. A movie, Enemy at the Gates. You ever see that movie with?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good little sniper movie, but probably overblown or over dramatized.
With Ed Harris.
Ed Harris.
And
the guy in Sons of Anarchy was in that too.
Yeah, the guy who was in Cold Mountain, or what's his name?
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
British actor, great actor. He played the Soviet marksman, and Ed Harris played the German marksman.
Yeah, we're gonna get it.
He was the Confederate soldier that returned home to in that.
Jude Law was in it. Ed Harris.
Thank you. Jude Law.
Joseph Fiennes was in it.
Yeah,
Ron Perlman was in it as sort of I think Jude Law's mentor sniper.
He was the sniper, and Fiennes was the commissar, the political commissar that was making him a hero in the newspapers. But it's based on kind of true incidents.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, the show goes on here, so we'll turn a corner and talk about some news. I know there's lots going on. There's some legal stuff happening, but.
Can I throw something out?
No,
I don't.
Of course you can.
I'm not basically an Ohio State fan. Okay, and it's not because I dislike Ohio State. It's just I'm not originally from Columbus, and so I don't have that baked into my psyche. But I'd like to say something like in defense of Ohio State here. And the occasion is this Jim Harbaugh going to the L.A. Chargers. So he's pulling a Pete Carroll. He's got this big scandal at Michigan, right, where they intercepted signs, deliberately stole signs about the play calls, right, which affects the outcome of the game. I mean, it's like
pretty much, and the whole season, quite frankly, it taints it if nothing else.
Yeah, so he gets suspended 5 games. The NCAA has not dropped the full hammer on Michigan's program yet. Of course, they won the national championship. And I'm just thinking back to the Tattoo 5, right? Terrell Pryor, and the other 4 students who had their Big Ten championship taken away.
Yeah.
Jim Tressel lost his job. Their individual NCAA records were also wiped off the books. And of course, what they were accused of was, profiting by selling their personal items to a tattoo guy to get tattoos, right? And now, of course, all that's legal. Like players can get paid now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. The enormity of that crime pales in comparison to what what Harbaugh is running away from.
Yeah.
And I think it's high time for the NCAA to restore to Ohio State its Big Ten championship, its 12-1 season record for the 2010 season, and to lift all these bans and all this.
That season. They got outright on their own. They didn't steal signs.
They didn't steal signs.
They just did. Right. Yeah, they did improper things, but it didn't affect the games they played.
They did things which now are totally okay to do.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it right back then. And back then, I mean, there was precedent before the Ohio State situation. I know Tennessee had a big scandal where people were selling jerseys and some other stuff. So there was some precedent that the NCAA was ratcheting up on that kind of stuff at the time. So
Steve, I'm horrified, man. You're a defense attorney. So
not only that, Norm, I know a lot about that case for reasons I can't go into.
No, that's fine. So I'm talking about the parts of the case that are on the record, not what's off the record.
Well, look, on the record, the NCAA was cracking down on that kind of stuff at the time.
Right. Just like we used to crack down on recreational marijuana.
Well, that's right. So we're not going back and exonerating everybody.
Oh, yes, they are.
No, we're not.
Oh, they're going to. Oh, yes, they are. They're going to wipe all that off.
No, they won't.
Jimmy Carter pardoned all the draft dodgers that went to Canada. We have gone back.
Biden has pardoned some of the marijuana people, but most of the we can go down a rabbit hole.
That's
here,
right.
But most of the marijuana cases that come in the federal variety aren't just mere possession of marijuana cases. They are typically conspiracy to traffic. They're going to be money laundering. There's going to be tax problems associated with them.
Not talking about those.
All right. Well, those are.
I'm talking about recreational use.
99.9% of the federal marijuana cases are of the ilk that I'm describing.
Yeah.
Very few federal marijuana cases are going to be mere possession cases. Now, there might be some. I've done a few misdemeanors in national parks.
I'm talking about state law.
Okay.
And even in state law.
We just passed this constitutional amendment, right? Recreational marijuana in Ohio is legal.
I don't think that's going to result in a pardon or full forgiveness of anybody who's got a marijuana conviction. I just don't.
It's going to be tried, though. They'll try.
And I think,
right?
and Steve,
and see where it stands.
I think
there's already a mechinism to do this. You can expunge records and you can seal records.
And I think
but not felonies of the first degree. So what do you do with somebody who back in the day was bringing in 1,000 pounds a month from California and or Mexico? You going to pardon that person?
Dude, I'm not talking about. I'm talking recreational use. Well, that's what's now legal.
Well, the recreational use is already they don't have to be pardoned. They can just get their records expunged or sealed.
Right.
I mean, they can already do that.
So I'm talking about expunging.
We're talking misdemeanors.
I'm talking about I traded a football to a tattoo parlor.
Right, so let's get back to the tattoo parlor.
To get an effing tattoo. Right. That's a misdemeanor to me.
Well, look, it was they were getting something of value for their
own personal property.
For their property, right.
That's right. Not Ohio State property.
That's right.
Yes.
So they were getting something of value for their own personal property.
Right.
The NCAA was cracking down on it. And look, I don't disagree with the NCAA in cracking down. I don't know what I think of this. I'm starting to develop some disdain for this name, image, likeness, the new rules, because what we're ending up with are going to be like 2, maybe 3 super conferences in the United States, and people just flat out paying college recruits to come play. And that's what Ohio State's done this year. We've got a phenomenal recruiting class, and that's what Michigan did to some extent.
So if you're a badass lineman and you're getting recruited by, say, Kent State and Ohio State, and you're thinking, well, gosh, which one would make a souvenir card, right? That I can make $1 million off of if I'm the next, Joey,
that already existed,
Joey Bosa.
That already existed to some extent, because if you're somebody that could go to
Bosa
either,
couldn't make money off that.
If you're somebody that could either go to Kent State or Ohio State, you're always going to choose Ohio State because your chances of onward progression within the football area or within the football career is going to be greater. It's the people who they're stealing from other schools. That's what makes this a little more difficult.
I'm trying to give an example of that.
Going into the portal.
They're gonna. So they have a good year at Kent State. They go in the portal, come to Ohio State, and they get all this.
Well, that doesn't even
stuff.
bother me so much. It's when you're stealing from your rivals. So it's like now we've taken a bunch of Alabama players, and that makes sense because Saban retired.
Yeah.
And Ohio State grabbed like 4 or 5 of their players, or I think that's about 3 or 4 anyway.
Yeah.
And I love it because I'm an Ohio State fan, and I think it's awesome. But from from a different perspective, you can sort of see this emerging where it's going to be another arms race with who can pay the most in their name, image, likeness fund, who's got the most backing, and we want to go there. And that's like
in which case you don't have to trade your football on your shelf for a tattoo. You can pay cash. Because maybe you got a couple $1 million.
What's it do to college football? It turns college football into pro football, and eventually that's what's going to happen.
Exactly. So since the NCAA has done that, I think they need to go back and recognize that what they did to these guys was disproportionate to what their crime was. They were taking their personal property and waddling up High Street to a tattoo parlor.
There was more to it than that. It was Ohio State's response to the problem that spurred some negative attention from the NCAA. And I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I think things might have been a little bit different if Ohio State took some different action on its own, locally speaking.
So the point is, Jim Harbaugh is just like Pete Carroll flew away from the USC scandal.
None of this is to say Jim Harbaugh didn't screw up. I mean, they screwed up. I agree with you 100%. What Michigan did here is cheat.
Well, yes,
they cheated.
And USC paid Reggie Bush money.
Yeah, to go win, right.
To play for USC. Yeah. Like, here's money for your parents. Here's money for your apartment.
And Pete Carroll with his little smile and his California attitude. And,
he goes up to Seattle and escapes the whole thing.
Yeah.
Jim Tressel couldn't even get an assistant job
over
at the Colts in Indianapolis.
You can't blame Pete Carroll or Jim Harbaugh for having NFL
but I can blame
characteristics.
Right. But
Tressel didn't. He wasn't an NFL coach.
Right, but what the NCAA did was they contacted the NFL and said, we want you to not allow Tressel to be an assistant coach. Like they went after him for the jugular.
I don't think.
And he was kicked off the Indianapolis Colts coaching roster because of the NCAA request. Okay, so all I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah. And then he became president of YSU, as we know.
Yeah, I mean, look.
So I love how you argue both sides, my brother.
To some extent, it's apples and oranges. You've got a different era, a different time, and I think Harbaugh's conduct here is more egregious and not comparable. I think
that's right.
To some extent, I'm making your point.
That's
in
right.
a different way.
Thank you. Right.
Stealing signs and cheating to win games is different than players making a little bit of money on the side.
If I were a player that would piss me off, I would want to leave. That you don't have that kind of support that we can get the job done. You have to cheat for us to get the job done. And now our record is tainted.
And they're national champions.
Yeah.
And the NCAA is not going to take that away.
They might.
No.
I hope they do.
Ohio State won the Sugar Bowl that year, and later on,
true.
The shoe fell.
And they not only took
against
away,
Arkansas, I think.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Not only did they take away that win in the Sugar Bowl, right? So it's off the books. Ohio State had to return all the revenue from that bowl game.
Yeah, there was a big sanction.
Holy crap!
But there's another interesting. Draw some parallels to World War II. There's another interesting philosophical consideration running through this, and that is, Harbaugh is going to claim, I didn't know what was going on.
That's right.
And, it was my assistants. I didn't know. Right. And, it raises this specter of like, wait a minute, where does deniability come into play, plausible deniability? When can a leader look the other way? Right. Or when, even if the leader didn't know subjectively, and maybe Harbaugh's telling the truth, he didn't know, is he still responsible for not knowing when he should have? And
Joe Paterno and that freak,
same thing.
That freak that went into the locker room.
Yeah, all those guys should have been absolutely skewered.
Right.
That was the most egregious pass that anybody's ever gotten. And I mean, look, all those guys.
Right.
And they were getting complaints.
Right.
It's like, hey, guess what, Penn State? There might be some child molesting going on in the showers.
Yeah. Oh, we can't.
And that's about how quiet it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it can't, that can't be true. I know that guy.
Yeah, we know him.
Whatever his name was.
I mean, he's been in the shower with some kids before, but, we don't think anything's going on. And we talked to him, and he said no.
They're just singing.
So we're good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're all good.
They're singing row, row, row. That was awful, right? And
absolutely gross. So, look, I don't know what's going to happen to Harbaugh in Michigan.
Nothing.
I don't know.
Nothing.
I hope that you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
I think you're probably right.
Yep.
I'm not positive yet.
And and I'm sure you say it the same way too. It's not just because it's Michigan.
That's right.
No.
What I'm
you
worried.
Don't do this.
What I'm worried is that they're laying off of this because everybody's doing it, and they just don't want to uncover a rot that is going to be way too much. So there may be a snake in the grass here. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. Why do they all hold that play card up to their mouth?
Well, sure.
So the camera can't read their lips.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Because people are watching them.
Well, this was crazy, though. I mean, this guy, what's his name, Connor, going to...
he had a staff of 13 volunteers.
He
was paying for their...
When he's on the sidelines, dressed in like a costume, wearing the other team's... It wasn't Ohio State, but wearing another... I forget who it was. It was like a lower tier school, like Penn State or something. And he's wearing their uniform shirt, and he's got these glasses on and a hat. It's freaking awesome. Yeah. I want hats off.
Yeah.
Hats off.
True. Creativity. A for creativity.
It was like he's on the sidelines. Posing as one of their coaches,
like a CIA operation. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So anyway,
I don't know the details well enough, but look, I hope that there's a sanction. I wouldn't surprise me if there's not.
So Harbaugh's sailing off. Michigan offered him $125 million to stay for a 10-year contract, and would have made him one of the highest coaches again.
Well, Michigan, they are losing a lot of people. I mean, all the Michigan fans say, "No, we're just reloading, and we still got the team." But I think that he's sort of geared up for this 1 or 2 seasons. And
if his aspirations NFL, then you go.
Yeah.
I mean, how many opportunities do you have to go to the NFL?
If you want that, I mean,
if that's what you want, you better take it.
And look, hats off to Harbaugh for other reasons. He's the guy on the front lines. Out there pushing a pro-life agenda. Have you seen any of this?
Oh yeah. He he emailed or announced to his players that if they got involved in an out of wedlock birth situation or pregnancy, that he and his wife personally would adopt that child.
And more recently, he was marching in favor of
people
pro-life.
freaked out. Yeah.
So look, that takes at a place like Michigan. Where that kind of, you're going to get skewered for that.
Right.
Skewered for that. And they still offered him money. So, look, he built a team. He won the championship. I don't know how much the signal or sign stealing contributed to that. I have no idea. And we'll never know.
It's a perfect time for him to leave.
I'm
not here advocating a bunch of hate or a bunch of penalties for him. Like I started out with, I think what these guys at Ohio State did was so minimal and so inconsequential to the outcome of any kind of a game. It was their own property, and at worst, what's on the record, I'm only speaking to that, Tressel, some later emails indicated that he knew about them doing this with this drug dealer tattoo guy as early as April of 2010, and he said he didn't know about it. So maybe he lied, and that would have been his crime if he did lie, okay? But it's so over the top to penalize the entire team and take away their Big Ten championship. It's so out of proportion.
Well,
because he lied about a tattoo.
What's bugging you is that the 180-degree shift from those rules.
That's right.
Is I think what's bothering you, because there was it was a staunch, it was a no excuse.
That's right.
Complete death penalty rule. If you get caught paying players in college, you get the death penalty. Right. Remember SMU back in the day,
and Urban
Texas.
Meyer the next year, right? He had a bunch of
Oklahoma, not Texas. Oklahoma.
So when he replaced Tressel, he had a bunch of scholarship slots taken away from him. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
They were sanctioned going forward. Yeah, and, so that was just a no-no at the time. And now it's like, we're just going to embrace it. And, we can't control it, so we're just going to let it happen.
I think it's a real tragedy, and it's an outrage to me.
I don't think I agree, the more I give thought to this, with paying the players to come to a certain school. I just don't think I agree with that.
No, I don't either. But since I don't agree with recreational marijuana legalization, but it's here now. Yeah. And if I had a buddy that got busted for rec marijuana, right, I would want his record expunged, because if it's legal now.
Yeah, but that was happening before it was legal. You could get your record expunged for just low-level misdemeanor marijuana.
I understand that, but I think it ought to be a mass expungement now. Only for rec users.
Everybody should have to pay me to do their expungement.
There you go.
Well, anyway, I've beat that to death. We should talk a little bit about our about our, very courageous Governor DeWine, who vetoed House Bill 68, and then has been overrode by
overridden
over something. He has been smacked down by both parts of the bicameral General Assembly, controlled by Republicans. Both the House and the Senate have overridden his veto, and so now I'm not going to call it gender affirming treatment. It's hormones, drugs, mutilation, and counseling of little children. This is only for minors that has now been banned, and it's not for those rare cases where they're hermaphroditic and they're born with defects physically that need to be surgically addressed.
Right.
It's for this wacky idea that you take your 8-year-old to a psychologist who's being paid if it goes to a surgical center at Children's Hospital, and they take off his penis and his nuts and tell him he's a girl, and he's not a girl.
Yeah, no, it's lunacy,
and he's got to live with that. He's a child that this has been done to.
This is Sodom and Gomorrah stuff. I mean, it's utter lunacy.
Right.
I mean, it's utter lunacy. Right. But the political, say what I've been an outward critic of DeWine. Say what you will, but he's politically shrewd. And so he almost walks away with the best of all worlds. He vetoes this. It's overruled, but he vetoed it so he can sort of make that side happy. Right. And then he issues this executive order in the midst of his veto, right after his veto, that seemingly sort of walks back some of the veto.
Makes no sense.
And now the General Assembly fixes it anyway, so it's just swept under the rug like it never happened. It's like DeWine sort of comes out smelling okay here.
He's perfectly set up to become the next president of Harvard, which is what I said. I really think he wants to replace.
You think so?
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm kidding.
Oh.
But I mean, like Steve
I was
said,
like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Wow.
Well, because he gets the wokeness, right? He gets the wokeness vote. But then he, like you said, it's all fixed.
It's political weaselness.
He knew what he was doing. Yeah.
And what else did he do just this week, right? So Governor Abbott's down there on the border, right, saying, okay, this 2-sentence Supreme Court. It wasn't even an opinion. It's just it was
a denial of an injunction.
Right. And he says, well, it doesn't say I can't put up more razor wire.
It
just says
it doesn't say he can't put up any more or keep what he's got there.
That's right.
He just can't stop the feds from taking it down.
So he's putting more up, and he's basically saying, hey, federal government, you failed to live up to your Article 1 to protect our state.
Yep.
So then under Article 10, the states have the right, if an invasion actually uses the word invasion in the Constitution, which I have right here.
Yeah, no one's got his pocket Constitution.
I got my Constitution. And because the Constitution was written very simply for farmers to read, because that's what we were a country of back then. This is not a complicated document, even though legal guys will tell you, oh, it's such a complex. Oh, this is really difficult to.
It's fungible, or it's elastic.
It's bullshit. You listen, you're allowed to have a gun. You're allowed to carry it. You're allowed to have free speech. Blah, blah, blah. This is very, very clear.
No law means no law.
It's a guidebook for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's that you've just opened up a can of worms because this.
So what did DeWine do? Just let me end that.
Right.
So DeWine, after 27 other governors, right, or whatever it is, have said, we support Governor Abbott, DeWine's like, yeah, I guess I need to prove my manhood too. So, yeah.
He supports. Right. Because he's a politician. Right? Yeah, he looks good. But look, this is coming down. These kind of conflicts between the state and the government have happened before. Think Civil War.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a few times.
And there was a case that came out of the Supreme Court back in pre-Civil War era where I think the North was trying to impose a tariff on foreign goods, and then the foreign people would do the same coming back.
Right.
So then that hurt the South more because they were exporting textiles.
Right.
But anyway, and the Supreme Court figured that out. But there's been nothing sort of like this. It's like I'm not aware anyway. I'm not a historian here, but we've got a conflict where the federal government, particularly the executive branch, is intentionally, and I say intentionally with bold underlined highlights.
No question.
Intentionally not following federal law.
That's right.
Intentionally.
Right.
Not doing it.
That's right.
Not protecting the borders, not enforcing immigration, not following not only the U.S. code, but also the basic constitutional duty it has to uphold the laws.
That's
so we have that scenario going on. So then you have Abbott down in Texas saying, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to put up razor wire, and I'm going to deploy my own National Guard, and we're going to do it ourselves. And the federal government says, no, you can't do that. We're going to come in and take down your razor wire. And Abbott's now, he's doubling down and sort of invoking this 10th Amendment, this idea of that there's an invasion. And I think I'm pretty, I don't know, again, Norm, I don't know the history, you may know it better than I, but I think the idea of that was if some state, a border state, were invaded, like Texas from the Army of Mexico.
That's right.
Or if you're up on the north side and Canada happens to grow a pair and they invade the United States or something.
Right.
I didn't say that out loud, did I? So they invade the United States or something with the Royal Mounted Forces.
Right.
They could act without a declaration of war because it was an emergency scenario.
Right.
So the question here becomes, with Abbott's latest move, is whether illegal immigration coming over the border amounts to an invasion. I think the answer is no. I think ultimately the history, text, and tradition of the Constitution would say no. It doesn't excuse the first problem, though, which is the executive branch of government not enforcing the laws of the United States of America.
Right.
And the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have to deal with this. I think there was an opinion back in, I don't know when it was, but Scalia wrote a dissent because I did some quick research on this. And, Scalia would support Abbott's conduct here. But I think this is going to have to get sorted out, and it's going to have to get sorted out quickly, or better put, Biden's little political maneuver here is going to have to stop.
Well, it was a 5-4, no opinion decision. It wasn't just a 2-sentence order, and 4 conservative justices were in favor. In other words, they would deny
the injunction.
Or
no, they would uphold.
They upheld
the injunction.
They would tell the federal government, no, you can't cut this wire. The state of Texas has the right to put it up, and you can't take it down. So that was Thomas and Kavanaugh and Alito, and I'm forgetting the other one. But it was the 4, conservatives.
Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett voted the other way.
They went the other way.
Right.
And I get it. This situation is almost unprecedented because the founding fathers could never imagine a situation where for 3 years now, the federal government would defy its own laws. Mm-hmm. The executive branch would defy laws passed by Congress that says when an illegal comes in, you have to arrest them, and then you have to return them, back unless it is a verified plea for not clemency for.
You asked me too fast.
You're in immediate fear of your life due to political tyranny.
Asylum, you're talking about.
Asylum.
So look, it's a fascinating set of circumstances, the way this is getting framed, because you have to go back to how our country was formed.
Yeah.
It was not always a federal government, and it was almost that the federal government didn't exist. In fact, the first version of the federal government was so weak that it basically didn't exist. So
it needed state militias.
So they had to get rid of the Articles of Confederacy and go back, and we have a constitutional convention.
We didn't have a standing army for a while. We had state militias.
We had state militias, right. We have this idea that our federal government is like its own big thing and the states are sort of blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it wasn't that long. Even in our grandparents' time frame, we're going to a different state meant something. We didn't always have this huge, omnipotent federal government.
Yeah.
And, there was a contract of sorts. We agree as a state to enter into this sort of bigger union, but here's the give and take. And the terms of the contract were basically written down in that document that you have right there.
Article 10, the unenumerated powers, the things that aren't in here
are left to the police power of the state.
To the states.
Yes.
Yeah, because I had to look up the definition of invasion.
Yep.
So, of course, we'd think of active invading, especially incursion of an army or conquest or plunder. Yep. The second one, this is Merriam-Webster, the incoming or spread of something usually hurtful.
So there's a world, I suppose, where you could fit
these
the illegal immigration into that. But I don't think the court
Well, it's unprecedented because the federal government hitherto always responded to these things.
Yeah, this is a political move. I mean, they're even screaming.
It's interesting.
They're even screaming, "Yay, Biden!" as they come across. So he's clearly doing. Look, you can't say this is by accident. You can no longer say this is by accident.
It's their policy.
It's a policy, and then you have to wonder why. Like, what are the Is it just because they're so stupid that they don't know it's happening? No, I can't accept that.
Listen, when Biden was campaigning against Trump, right, in 2019. Okay, in 2020, when he was running, he gave speeches where he said, America welcomes illegals.
Yeah.
Like, if you can get here, we're your landing pad, we welcome you with open arms.
You wonder, so look.
It is his policy.
It's his policy. And I wonder, is it just power and votes because they think eventually these people will vote for him or their party? Or is there something more deeper behind it? Like Marxism, like getting rid of, or is America, they just think America is so horrible that it needs to be punished and just destroyed by letting all these other people come in and this is our penance.
I just don't see it being a guarantee letting people in that they're going to vote for you.
I tend to agree with that. And I think generally the Hispanic vote, like the traditional Hispanic vote, they're very family conservative oriented group of folks.
So it's not a guaranteed vote.
So then it's like, why do it?
Right.
Why are they doing it? And there's an
especially
idea,
after 9/11.
You have to eliminate property rights. You have to. It's like this is destroying the country. If you scale this up, the country is gone. You can't have a country without a border. A border defines a country. Therefore, without the border, you don't have a country.
So I heard a great stat, Steve, and Brett. You guys will love this stat. So I was listening to an expert. He used to run the Border Patrol. At any rate, he said it's estimated with gotaways and with the ones that have been processed, it's right around 10 million that have come in since Biden has become president. And he said there are 33 states that have 10 million or fewer, citizens.
Yeah.
33 states.
So we've let another state in.
We've let in another state.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, it's
insanity.
It's insane.
And then these people, these talking heads, on the leftist media are like, they're calling Abbott this evil guy, it's like his state is getting ruined. Property is getting ruined. There's tent cities on people's private land.
Right.
And they don't care because they want to eliminate private ownership of land anyway, because they're going to have theirs. They just don't want you to have yours. I mean, you almost think that that's what's going on.
Well, fentanyl, I mean.
Well, not to mention the crime. Right?
I mean, Rick Harrison, the guy, the Pawn Star guy on TV, just lost his son to fentanyl and has said, no doubt it came across the border. And his son just died of fentanyl, not the one that's on TV all the time.
Another one. I saw
but
that
another
story.
one. So I mean, we're seeing this rise up into the upper and the middle class where their kids are dying of fentanyl.
Well, it's not just it's a more sinister problem than that, because we don't have the resources to give away, and these people want to give away more. There has to be a limit,
Right, and the terrorism aspect.
This is something. This is something that you can scale up and down. So think of your own house. I debated somebody about this before. I was like, well, why don't you just open up your own house and just do the logic here? It's like you have a full refrigerator that feeds your family of 4, and you're going to let in one other person. You might be able to absorb that,
right,
and pay for that. Yeah. But now 2, and then 3, and when can't you do it? When do you run out of bedrooms?
Well, and now they're coming from all over. It's not Mexicans. Yeah. They're coming in from China. They're coming in
everywhere.
From Africa,
look, China's
Russia.
These are evil people that these are our arch enemies entering freely across our southern border.
MS-13. Yeah. The statistic, the same guy, gosh, is his name Hogan? I can't think of the guy, but the former head of Border Patrol, Mark Miller. Anyway, he said that when Trump was president, in the 4 years, they arrested 3 people on the no-fly list that came across the Rio Grande. Under Biden, his 3 years, we don't even have 4 years of data yet. It's over 150 that have been arrested on the no-fly list.
Yeah,
is it because it's just wide open.
It's wide open.
Yeah, and you could. And I was spinning this in another way in my head too. Okay, we're not a country of Puritans here. We're not the best people in the world. So I think of the people coming across, and so if it's millions of people coming across, there are some evil people here in the United States who are going to take advantage of these people too.
No question.
So we're building up a lot of bad stuff here.
And their cartels back home.
Yeah, the carpetbagger feel to it. You know, they're going to take advantage of the situation that they don't know how to work the system. So they're evil. They're going to be evil people here that take advantage of them.
And I have heard
just
this
as bad
argument,
as when they were down in their own country.
And I have heard this argument, which is complete utter nonsense to me. It's like, well, we need these people to go because otherwise nobody would clean our houses.
Oh my
nobody
God.
would do this. It's like,
come on.
How you use the word xenophobic? Like how arrogant is that?
Exactly.
Like, oh, these people don't. Oh, I need them here to go pick my crops and clean my house.
How about
like, go screw yourself, you arrogant pricks.
How about that racial stereotype?
Right.
Exactly.
By the Democrats.
Arrogance of that is so insane. And not only that, it's like they're working outside the margin of taxes. So tax the rich, man. These people work for free. Tax the rich.
You know, and to your point about so the xenophobia thing. So aren't we trying to get over that with black stereotype?
Yes.
So now we're going to put that on to.
Sure.
That's right. So they're going to be your slaves, essentially, is what they're saying.
Exactly.
That's what they're saying. They're going to be low-paid, indentured servants.
Right.
And, I mean, irrespective of how that screws up the economy, it's like it's so offensively arrogant when I hear that.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
It's like, what do you mean we need these people to do the crap work that we won't do? It's like BS.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I was here
exactly.
cleaning this building this past weekend, right? You know, it's like it's such nonsense.
Really, and you know, there was just a movie about a Hispanic NASA astronaut that came out.
I've seen that movie. Yeah.
Fantastic movie. Right? And you never hear a Democrat say, "Hey, we need more Hispanics to come across the Rio Grande to become astronauts and physicists." And professors at Harvard and Yale.
Right.
No, they never say that. They go right to their racial stereotypes, which is the Democratic Party, the party of slavery.
Well, and then, you know,
they're the Ku Klux Klan party. The Democrats are the party of racial separation. They're still doing it, and that's why that Claudine Gay lady at Harvard lost her frickin' job because she's defending racial segregation for entrance exams.
And you know, people ask,
"What if I'm Asian or white? I have points against me?"
Yes,
you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Well, you're as bad as the Klan. You are the Klan.
Well, back to a country with no borders is not a country because the borders define a country. So you have to then ask, how do you differentiate between like the great immigration back in the turn of the century when we had lots of people coming in and, you know, we opened up the melting pot and America grew. Well, we needed people, right? But they didn't come in illegally. They came in lawfully, and it wasn't the best for them, and they had a hard struggle.
They had a hard struggle.
And they turmoiled, and they worked the ground.
No
but you know what? They became citizens. They became part of the culture, and it became a melting pot of our culture. This is not that. These are people coming in illegally, not to become Americans, but to sort of live unlawfully off our resources and do whatever. I don't even know what's going on. So it's not the same. And you don't have to give asylum to the entire world. We can't do it because the house fills up, the fridge runs out, and eventually you're not a country anymore.
So we need to use our political power to talk to that country, Mexico, wherever, and get some things straightened out.
Yeah, no more.
No more.
Right.
Without throwing money at it. I don't mean that at all, but it's like, okay, what's going on down here? We got to stop.
Well, we had a wait in Mexico policy under Trump, and Biden got rid of that day one.
Immediately.
So
and, in the way they twist the words, so now they're saying, well, we can't. It's Trump's problem, right? Because there's so many people coming that we need more resources to be able to let more people in. I mean, that's their argument. We don't have the resources to deal with this. Instead of closing down the border, they want to open it up more and then put more people in charge of letting people in. I mean, it's utter nonsense.
So I would like to just give a concrete example of what we're doing with these illegals. So, Abbott and DeSantis have been roundly criticized for their moving of a few people to like Martha's Vineyard or New York City or Chicago. They only account for about 12% of the relocation of these immigrants from the border across the United States. The rest of the 88% is the federal government is doing it.
And they went to the quote sanctuary cities.
And do you know what the deal is when they get on these airplanes? It's unbelievable. First of all, there's no background check on them, unlike American citizens.
Yeah, we can't get on a plane. Right?
We can't get on a plane without our ID. These people are allowed, the illegals are allowed to board aircraft where other people, American citizens, are on the same plane having to demonstrate their actual ID, the illegals can get on these planes. This is all federal policy.
So they're going through TSA?
They're going through TSA with no ID.
With a pass?
Yes.
Yeah, no IDs. They walk
no
right
IDs. They're flying with no IDs.
Yep.
American citizens have to produce an ID, right? And I'm just like, my mind's blowing.
Yeah, anecdotally, that's insane.
So I would like, can you imagine at the 9/11 Commission presenting to them that scenario, saying, guys, look, you're investigating 9/11. Good idea or bad idea to let people on planes without any ID?
It's not if, but when. When the next terrorist attack happens, it's going to be one of these people
no question.
that came into the country, and they're plotting against us as we speak.
And it's sadly that it has to take that type of wake-up call for us to go, what are we doing?
I don't know how everybody in the country is not absolutely petrified of this problem.
They hit the Pentagon and knocked down the World Trade Center.
Beyond that, Norm,
they killed 3,000 people, and 4 jets went down. But the American people are letting these guys fly without an ID on commercial flights.
But right now,
we're just all checked out.
I hear the quote elites. Several friends of mine are saying, well, big deal immigration. Big deal immigration. No, we need the people.
Oh, you're a hater, Steve.
Yeah,
you must hate people with brown skin. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it just is.
And you're like, really? Is that what I am?
Well, so look, name calling.
Yeah.
Immediately resort to name calling.
Right. And it stops the conversation.
Yeah, you're racist, xenophobic. You don't like brown people.
Right.
But when we're all racist, nobody's
where's your humanity?
Racist.
Don't you have any empathy? Blah 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 blah. Right. Look, I'm all for help. Maintain the country. Let people in lawfully when we need them. And you can say how arrogant that is. Yes, when we need them. So if we want to expand our population, or if we do need help doing the work that needs to be done in the United States,
they can fight in our armed forces.
Let them come in.
Yeah.
Naturalize them as citizens, and then they become Americans.
Yeah.
And they get to earn a living. They get to pay taxes. They get to contribute to society.
We need to know who it is. Every damn thing about them.
You bet.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's not unfair, nor is it xenophobic or racist or anything else to have those requirements.
Because the reverse is true on us. You know everything about us.
Well, when I just mentioned, right, I toured the former Soviet Union, Russia.
Yep.
Every 3 days as a tourist, I had to check in with the police in Russia, or their deputized civilian agents, usually a hotel manager.
Yep.
And I literally got out my passport, right? And it had to be stamped.
Papers. Show us your papers.
Every 3 days, or else I'm a fugitive in Russia.
Yep.
America, like we have nothing like this. We are such a giving, open country. We are a good country. Net, we are a good country.
Right.
We've done more.
We are
for
the
human
best country.
I
said it right here on Common Sense
Ever
Ohio.
in human history.
Probably in human history.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what we do for other countries. We are currently guaranteeing the shipping of even our adversaries through the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
Our taxpayers, the U.S. taxpayer, is paying to keep the Red Sea open for those shipping companies that want to use the Suez Canal, including China, Russia, everybody.
People want to blame our country for the times it exercised its power instead of applauding our country for the times it did not. Right. So we could take out.
Or it did in the defense of
Or it
human
did in the defense. Right.
life.
So look, we have the power to be absolute world authoritarians right now. We could do it.
That's right.
We could do it. And, it might be, we'd be in Armageddon if we tried to do it, but we could do it. We have that power. We have that strength. We are that mighty of a fighting force of a nation.
We could be the Roman Empire modern.
And we have never done it.
Too. Yeah.
We have never done it. And don't think we couldn't have at the end of World War I or World War II.
Yeah, or the end of Desert Storm.
Or the end of Desert. You're right. Absolutely right.
It's just say to Kuwait, gosh, you're the 51st state. We're just taking Kuwait.
Yep, it's a colony.
Yep.
Right.
We got all
so
this.
These evil colonists didn't colonize.
Right. So you can be like the Hawaiian monarchs. We will let the sheikhs continue to have you can live in your palaces and derive all this money, right? But just like we told the Hawaiian monarchs that, hey, sorry, you're a territory now. We could have done that. We didn't.
You're a territory now, and guess what? We will defend you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
There's a little bit of a give and take.
You'll be like Puerto Rico,
and Guam, and
So you got to anyway.
Yeah.
So this nonsense is all coming to a head, and it's like you wonder how this all gets defined. Is Biden really going to ride this train all the way to hell, because that's where it's leading? I mean, he's essentially giving away the country. He is an active president of the United States, not enforcing the laws of the United States, intentionally not enforcing the laws of the United States. And now the Supreme Court is going to have to get involved. And for the first time, I think, in our history, really, really sort that out. I mean, look, you can say the Civil War is a good example, and maybe that's the last time we had to deal with it. I'm not predicting a civil war, but, you've got people calling for the federal government takeover of the Texas National Guard. And, you've got some.
Well, and hopefully it's not going to happen, that what we just talked about comes out in the presidential debates, but it's not going to. It's going to be sound bites. It's going to be
one debate.
It's going to be one debate, and they're not going to talk about the realism of what's going on here. It's just that you're letting too many in. You want to close down because you don't like them.
There might be some VP debates.
Maybe.
But I agree with you. There won't be a presidential.
They won't have this substantive discussion about what this action-reaction, this letting them in what is happening. It's going to be just fluff.
Guys, it used to be, and I remember several situations when Reagan and the two Bushes were president, for example, where a very liberal law passed by Congress, something to do with abortion, let's say, or something to do with EPA or whatever, but it was a federal law. And even though the administration disagreed with that law, it sent their attorney general to court to defend federal legislation against attack in court, because it was the law of the land. Mm-hmm. And the president said, the law of the land, I can't change the law of the land. It was passed by Congress. So I'm going to send the attorney general, down, the solicitor general, down to court, and they're going to defend this federal law.
Like it or not, it's the law of the land.
It's the law of the land. Mm-hmm. This is what, Obama kind of didn't do that. He diverted from that longstanding policy. And with Biden, it's just completely off the hook. Not only does he not uphold federal law, he actually just legislates.
Well, he defies
from the
it.
Oval Office. He just makes up stuff.
He defies it to its face.
In its face.
You're not allowed to forgive student loans. I'm going to forgive student loans.
Right.
You can't do this. It's against the law. I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Yay.
Right. And by the time it reaches the court, it will have been in action for a couple of years.
Right.
And I get all that benefit for 2 years, right, until the Supreme Court smacks me down again.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't care. I'm just going to do it anyway. And remember, I'll never forget it. It was in a debate with one of the I think it was all the Democrats when they were running in their primaries. It was Kamala Harris. I forget who she was debating. It might have been Biden. I don't remember who was on the stage with her, but they were talking about gun control. And I think Biden or somebody got up and said, look, there is the Second Amendment. We can't do that. I don't want to hear no. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
We can. Let's just say, I say we can do it. It's like, no, you freaking can't. There's a constitution with amendments that say you can't. And she is up there on that stage getting applauded for saying, I just want to hear, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can take away this right. Yes, I can.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so we should pull that. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. Well, I just think the founding fathers just could not imagine that scenario being played out right now down on the border. It defies anything. They couldn't even think of it. You have to hate the country. Yeah. Or come up with some other sinister reason that you think you should open up the southern border. Yeah, you want to turn a red state blue, or whatever your agenda is. But it's outrageous. But isn't impeachment the solution? Is the solution? I mean, I guess we should talk about that. There is a solution here. There is. Impeachment's the solution. There's not going to be enough time to get it all done, but impeachment is the solution. McConnell. I mean, in a nutshell. You've got an open border, a president who's snubbing his nose at these things. I mean, it's a crime. I guess I would say. Is that a high crime to intentionally violate or not enforce federal law? It's unprecedented, really. Yeah, it's unprecedented. Or to oppose an invasion, if this can be characterized as such. Yeah, I don't think so. And Abbott has made that declaration. He has officially put it out there. I call this an invasion. Very calculated language. And I'm waiting for you federals to protect my state. And there are 300,000 crossed over in December by the federal government's own admission. 300,000 people in 1 month crossed over the border to Texas.
It's crazy.
So it is an invasion, either imputed or real. It's not from a particular, state, right? But it's an invasion of people, right? From all ethnicities.
Yeah.
From around the world.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure there's Frenchmen and Irishmen.
Whether
I'm sure
that is going to be a 10th
people.
Amendment invasion, or I tend to think not. If I'm on the Supreme Court, I don't know the history, and I don't know.
It doesn't say military invasion.
It doesn't say military
it says
invasion.
Right.
But we can't on the one hand talk about the Constitution not being this elastic thing that you can change with the times, and on the other hand support it being an invasion when maybe it's not.
Original intent.
You have to look at it, and I don't think they're going to say immigration is an invasion. I wouldn't if I'm on the court.
Or it could be an economic invasion by a country allowing so many people to come into your country that it breaks down your economy.
Social order, yes.
Yeah.
Social order. You could. I mean, that's a
right.
stretch. That's a huge stretch.
But
you think of it that way.
When they're kicking kids out of
Maybe.
school.
So there's an argument that you can make that you just made. It's a great argument. This is an economic invasion.
Sure.
Invasions aren't necessarily hot wars.
Right.
I don't think the court's going to go there, nor do I think they have to.
Yeah.
I think the better legal issue is the question that needs to be resolved. When you have a federal government, an executive branch, that intentionally defies federal law, how do you handle that?
That's right.
And that would stop the whole thing. Yeah, right.
How do you handle that?
Then it's a domino effect.
We've never had to deal with not like that.
That's right.
Not like that. I don't think we've ever had to deal with that.
Well, an existential threat to the country.
Well,
right?
what if, for instance, reversing this, there was back in the Jim Crow South when we had the anti-slavery amendment, and when all that came through, we send the FBI down,
right,
and we send the federal forces down, and the National Guard into these private to enforce.
Voting Rights Acts and all kinds of federal legislation.
Right. So you had the states defying the feds. The feds acted. Now this is sort of the reverse of that.
14th, 15th Amendment stuff.
But imagine if whoever were elected president at that time did not enforce that law.
Right.
How would that be viewed?
Right.
How would that be viewed?
So
that's what's going on.
Pearl Harbor was not an invasion. 9/11 was not an invasion. Those were attacks on the U.S. And so the federal.
I think those are invasions.
Well,
by definition, it is.
So
by
Hawaii,
force.
that wasn't a state at the time. Hawaii.
It was an attack. It wasn't an invasion. Like Japan didn't land troops and try to invade.
Well,
they came in.
They came across the borders with hostile.
That's right.
And hot intentions.
Right.
So look, I think the 10th Amendment was designed to say, all right, these guys are coming over our border with warlike intentions. You as a state can act to defend yourself because there's not enough time for the federal government to do it.
That's right.
I think that's what the 10th Amendment's all about.
No question.
Right.
They couldn't imagine the federal government would just idly sit by.
So what would happen if this were a hot war? If the Army of Mexico was literally coming over the border, would anybody criticize Abbott for deploying forces and dealing with it? No. On the other hand,
on the other hand, you could argue that the cartel is just like the Barbary Pirates.
You can make that argument.
It's a non-state actor, right? Yeah. That is militarily armed and is causing this invasion.
It's a fascinating philosophical dive into things like federalism, into states' rights, into constitutional power, and then there's another.
So to Brett's xenophobia observation, it's even deeper than that. People of the same ethnicity, the cartel people, it may be of the same ethnicity as them acting as coyotes, where they charge $10,000, let's say, for a teenage girl to come over across the border, and then she has to pay that $10,000 off, or the cartel will hunt her down in Ohio or New York or Pennsylvania. Will hunt her down and kill her or maim her or do something to her unless she acts in human trafficking as some sort of
right. So she's a Trojan horse at this point, right?
That's right.
Right.
And then so it also raises another interesting legal issue, and there's this comes into play in my practice every now and then. Where it's something called the Supremacy Clause, where if you have a federal law that's in conflict with a state law, the federal law theoretically wins, and then you get to these other. There's something else called, we talked about this a few months ago, something called preemption of the field.
Yeah.
Where where federal law becomes so ubiquitous throughout that states not only lose because they're inferior to the Supremacy Clause, but they can't even act. Any state law is completely out of the picture because the federal law has preempted the field. It's so pervasively regulated by federal law, the states can't do anything.
Like drugs. It would be a good example, maybe.
Drugs, more like the highways.
Oh, okay.
Like stuff like that that's been deemed to preempt the field.
Okay.
The drugs, though, so Ohio couldn't. It happens every day with marijuana, which is an interesting little example.
Yeah.
But Ohio theoretically can't permit things that the federal government outlaws.
Yeah, in theory.
Right.
In theory.
Right. In theory. Okay.
But here, so you wonder, it's like that's the preemption doctrine and supremacy clause, federal power over states' rights. All this is sort of coming to a head in this one little issue, and it's all Biden's political BS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's not accidental.
Super dangerous. This is so.
Look, we are writing the history of the decline of the United States of America. We are writing it as we speak.
Yeah, I mean,
we're watching it happen.
So
this is 476 AD.
DeSantis is gone. Nikki Haley's probably going to drop out at some point.
Don't say that.
She's got to.
Well, you kind of a Haley girl.
So what happened?
I do. I kind of like so far.
She's
I like competition as well. I like competition.
She's not horrible.
Well, what happens, guys?
I was a DeSantis guy.
What happens, guys, if Trump dies, or if Trump goes to prison, or Trump?
But let's drill down just for a second. So, I think it's interesting because
everybody's dropped out.
Brett's a man in the middle. I think it's good. I think we should talk about the negatives on Trump. What don't you like about Trump? I mean,
I don't like him as a vessel delivering what he. I just don't like him as a
human.
The way he does things.
Okay.
His politics. What he's trying to do.
His policies.
There's some validity to it. I just don't like the vessel that it's delivered in. I just don't like it. I don't like him as
a pretty standard criticism
as a statesman.
He's
not a statesman. He's just not. I don't like him representing our country.
I'm kind of good with somebody not being a professional politician.
And he can be tough when he needs to be tough. Granted, that's I don't know.
But he's tough when he doesn't need to be tough too.
Right.
He
so
just stupid shit that he does.
So you're talking about
drives me nuts.
Is it his personality?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I think
him weighing in on
personality matters.
Yeah.
No, it does.
Right. And him weighing on DeWine's over the SB thing.
Yeah.
Oh, why? Why? Who gives a crap what you think about what DeWine did?
A lot was said at this table too.
I know.
Are you criticizing? It's okay. No. Criticize me. It's okay.
No. I'm saying at his level. His level.
Well, DeWine rejected legislation that would have banned men from playing in women's sports, and it banned mutilation of children.
I understand that, but
so Trump has a position on this.
I know. I don't know. It just when he spoke out again, it just bothered me. It's like, I don't care.
So I'll go to his personality. Anyway. His speech on New Hampshire night was ridiculous. He should have been talking about how awful Biden is because he's the candidate. He's the guy who's going to. He should have not said anything about Nikki Haley.
Exactly.
And just like now the attention turns to Biden because DeSantis is out.
Right.
Nikki got 70% of Nikki's vote was Democrats. Mm-hmm. Only 30% of the votes that she got were Republican.
Right. Yeah. And New Hampshire's a weird bird.
Trump's got an easy path. Shut up.
Yes. About those things.
Criticize Biden.
That's right.
Not even Biden. Just criticize what's going on because it's easy. We do it every day here.
Exactly.
Right. That's all he needs to do.
They're wiffle balls.
But Brett, here's what I have. Here's the paradox with Trump. That I have to that sort of conflicts me sometimes. If any other personality would not have survived, because the attacks that the left would wage against him. Calling him a racist, calling him this, calling him that. These, he was a Democrat essentially when he ran.
That's right.
And the left just absolutely skewered him because he beat the darling, Hillary.
Yeah.
And so it like a lot of this is
Jeb
manufactured
Bush,
Bush.
in the primary.
Right. So he's got the personality where if you throw a punch at him, he's going to bring out a chain. And if you throw a chain at him, he's going to bring out a knife and a chain and a gun. It's like
and a hand grenade.
He will stand his ground and fight back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't he won't get intimidated by Biden or these other idiots calling him a racist or calling him this or calling him that or accusing him of things. The problem is that same personality that lets him be able to deal with that, it never stops.
It never stops.
And he takes on fights that he doesn't have to take on.
Well, and he's not, he is not classy about it.
No, he's not.
He is not elegant in his speech. He's a street fighter. He's a brawler.
I almost wonder if he's a little dyslexic. It's like, it's like, you're right. He's a street fighter. He gets his point across.
Right.
He gets things. I think by and large he gets things right, but it's he's got to plow through like
he's even vulgar sometimes.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well, so I got to recollect, and you guys have a better memory than I do. So when he jumped into the race, there were how many up on stage?
Like 17 guys.
Right.
Yeah. And
so
girls.
all of a sudden he pops in and go, "What? Trump? What?" But he wins.
He wins because you know what he did?
So that's why I don't like the no competition to this.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, but maybe Haley has something that Trump people on the edge kind of going, yeah, she's a better vessel for this.
The problem is she tried
to
to appeal to wokeism by playing the gender card and all that.
The problem is that Trump voters like the fact
that
Trump is just a big middle finger, right? He's just a big phallus.
He's a walking
right in the
finger.
face to the people that his supporters hate. The elitists who think they know better. The elitists who want to say, you can't do it, but I can.
Right.
The ones that want to take everything from you under the cause of environmentalism or the cause of racism or the cause of this.
Right.
I mean, now they're essentially saying if you support Trump, you're a racist. You're a
white supremacist.
You're a white supremacist.
Right.
So anybody who has supported Trump or voted for, the other side has called you a white supremacist.
Right.
And it's like, look, is Nikki Haley the person to stand up and take that on? I don't think so. I think in a different time, after we turn the corner, she's perfect.
She's a nice lady. She's like Mitt Romney, who's a nice guy.
Yeah,
they'll crush her.
I think DeSantis could have taken that on at some point or on some level.
He's tough as nails
because he's tough enough to do it, but he doesn't have the rhetoric that Trump's got that people like.
Well, he's classy about it, right? I mean, DeSantis when he talks. Doesn't talk about hating anybody. He doesn't talk about what kind of dress they wore, or their high heels. He doesn't get into this slighting them on a personal level. I mean, he doesn't play that stuff because he knows politically that's really ignorant. Like it turns off suburban women big time. When Trump called Rosie O'Donnell, I think it was, a fat pig, like I just put my hands over my face like,
why do it?
Why?
Dude, like maybe she is, but hold that thought in your head.
He has no filter at times. There's no filter.
Ever.
Dude, like what is wrong? Why would you say that?
I think he would still be president.
No question.
If he didn't have Twitter.
I agree.
Oh,
I agree.
Right? January 6th wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's his bullhorn.
And look, I'm not going to, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of an election that was stolen, but it was rigged to some extent. The voting rules changed because of, quote, COVID. There was a lot of reasons why Trump didn't win that election that had less to do about him and more to do about how the election was conducted.
Well, they're still finding votes. Like in Virginia, they found 20,000 votes. Now, most of them would have been for Biden.
Yeah.
But it is disturbing that the people in Virginia running the election in 2020 have just now this past week said, we just found 20,000 votes.
Imagine that. Right.
And people are like, really?
So there a lot of the rules around the swing states, Pennsylvania changed, Wisconsin changed, like the swing states changed their rules for the election. So I wonder,
yes, we'll never know.
I wonder what happens this time. And look, my prediction still holds. I do not believe that Joe Biden will be the Democratic candidate for the presidency. I can't accept it.
Yeah, you think somebody's going to come out of nowhere, basically, or maybe
the guy from Minnesota. I forget always.
Well, I mean, Trump could have a heart attack, and then DeSantis will be the guy.
Well, how does that work? I meant to ask you. So how does this work?
At the convention.
So he would have to show up at the convention, and it would be a vote.
Well, the convention could just
so that's why they call it suspended versus pulling out.
That's right.
It's just suspended. But I'm not out of the race yet. I'm just suspending it.
Suspending my campaign.
That makes sense of why that term is used now.
Well, the Republicans.
I get that now.
The Republicans at the convention could nominate Wink Martindale.
I mean, they tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, I mean they could. I mean,
you kind of wonder.
They could pick Oprah. Yeah. You don't have to be a declared candidate. They can ask them will you accept the nomination? They vote, and then that person accepts it or rejects it. You know, so
we'll see. I mean, there's lots of history yet to be told.
You know, it almost happened with a president from Ohio, William Henry Harrison. He died 30 days after he was sworn in as president. Okay, he could have died 30 days before the election, right? And so you say, well, then what? Well, then people vote for somebody else.
Or if Trump's in prison or held in jail, I can easily see this happening.
Yeah. He'll still be on the ballot.
He'll be on the ballot.
There's nothing that says a convicted felon can't be president. That's not in the Constitution.
I mean, what an incredible historical debacle.
And then, so a felon gets elected president, and then when he's sworn in, he says, "I pardon myself."
I pardon myself. All right. Well, look, we got to tie this up. I don't even know what we covered today, but it's been interesting.
Hey, one thing on elections, because you brought up Spectre at our last show,
the
World Economic Forum.
I expect you to die.
So Klaus Schwab actually said that elections are no longer needed in the future. We can use AI. AI will project who the election winner will be, so we don't need to have elections.
Yeah, and these
he actually said
these
that.
Evil MFers believe this nonsense.
So I just wanted to throw that in because
I expect you to die.
I expect you not to vote. Yeah. My computer will pick the next president.
Right, the one I own and programmed.
All right.
All right. So Common Sense Ohio, brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. You can check us out at commonsenseohioshow.com. You can leave comments. We've got a Facebook presence now. We've got a YouTube presence now. We got reels coming out at an alarming rate. Lots of great stuff happening here. If you want to be part of the crew, you want a topic covered, you want to hear what Norm's got to say about something, it's easy. Just go to commonsenseohioshow.com, send us an email, and we will cover it. If you want to go bicker with the rest of the people, the millions of listeners on Facebook, check it out. There's a little bit of back and forth going on there.
It's amazing how many people hate us, and I love all of them. But it basically, our Facebook page is nothing but a series of criticisms, slights, hatred directed towards this program.
Not me.
Bring it. I could care less. I could care less.
I don't care.
It's water down my back like a duck.
Well, to that end, what we try to do here is just
not here to be loved.
Just have a conversation.
I love you, but you don't have
I
to.
Try to speak common sense, and sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes I'm not wrong, and sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm not right. I don't really care. Right. And a lot of times what we do here is we think out loud. I literally think through things at the microphone. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm not perfect. Far from it. There's only been one perfect, and it ain't I.
Yeah, they crucified him.
So
he did smart off to his mother once. Jesus did. And I always bring that up with Catholic priests. Well, if he's perfect, he disobeyed the fourth commandment. He said, woman, he actually called his mother woman, woman, keep silent, right? Hmm. And I'm like, really? That's respecting your mother?
I'm not going down that rabbit hole. So anyway, at you, Common Sense Ohio, coming at you right from the middle each and every week, at least until